We got a breaking news story and a brand new order coming out of Judge Boesberg, Chief Judge of the federal court in D.C., citing to Kafka and the novel The Trial as his lead. He's saying that 250 or more people that were taken in the middle of the night in planes to try to get them away from federal jurisdiction and courts and dumped off in El Salvador are living a Kafkaesque nightmare. And he is certifying a class of those people that are in CICOT, not named Abrego Garcia, in El Salvador, which is the next step to allowing them to seek together a writ of habeas corpus petition to force their return to the United States. And in doing so, Judge Boesberg has also ruled that despite the ruse that the Trump administration is trying to perpetrate on the court, which he calls out, that the United States does have custody, constructive custody over those prisoners that they dumped off, even though they've been arguing they dumped them off in the middle of the night into a dark, dank prison and didn't keep the receipt. Judge Boesberg doesn't believe that and has used that constructive custody finding of his as the basis for his class certification. It matters. It matters that it's this particular judge who's making the ruling. I'm going to break it down for you right here on Legal AF. I've got the 69-page decision. I'm going to post it on Legal AF Substack, but let me give you the breakdown. I gave you the headlines. Let's get into it. Let's start with Kafka. One of my favorite books as a future lawyer was Kafka's The Trial. Apparently, it's something that resonated with Judge Boesberg as well, because he compares unfavorably the treatment of these people being rousted out of bed in the middle of the night in Texas and shackled and loaded on the planes as to the Joseph K. character of The Trial. This is how the judge starts it on page 1 of his order. One morning, Kafka's Joseph K. awakens to encounter two strange men outside his room. As he gets his bearings, he realizes that he's under arrest. When he asks the strangers why, he receives no answer. We weren't sent to tell you that, one says. Proceedings are underway and you'll learn everything in due course. Bewildered by these men, the judge writes, and distressed by their message, K tries to comfort himself that he lives in a state governed by law, one where all statutes are in force. He therefore demands again, how can I be under arrest and in this manner? Now, there you go again, the guard replies. We don't answer such questions. Undeterred, K offers his papers and demands their arrest warrant. Good heavens, the man scolds. There's been no mistake. Our department is only attracted by guilt. It doesn't seek it out. That's the law. I don't know that law, K responds. You'll feel it eventually, the guard says. And then the judge spends the next couple of pages saying that's exactly how the putative class members and their plaintiff representatives must have felt. He continues on page 2. Such was the situation into which Frangel Reyes Mota, Andre Jose Hernandez Romero, and scores of other Venezuelan non-citizens say they were plunged on March 15th of 2025. In the early morning hours, Venezuelans held by the Department of Homeland Security at El Valle Detention Facility in Texas were awakened from their cells, taken to a separate room, shackled, and informed they were being transferred. To where, they were not told. When asked, some guards reportedly laughed and said they did not know. Others told the detainees incorrectly they were being transferred to another immigration facility or to Mexico or Venezuela. Before long, Reyes Mota, Hernandez Romero, and the other detainees, the judge writes, were shuttled onto buses, driven to a nearby airport, and loaded into planes. The planes eventually departed, one stop in Honduras, on the way to El Salvador and to the Center for Terrorism Confinement, CICOT. Under what authority, the judge writes? It turned out that a mere hours before the planes took off, President Trump had invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. When the country is at war or has suffered an invasion or predatory incursion, then the act authorizes certain behavior. Then he then goes on to say he held a very quick hearing, and despite ordering twice that the planes be returned to allow for federal jurisdiction and due process rights to be preserved, they violated his order. In fact, the judge reminds everyone in his new order that he found likely probable cause that the Trump administration is in criminal contempt related to these actions to try to take these prisoners away from federal jurisdiction. I mean, at one point in the order, the judge cites to the Declaration of Independence in the list of grievances by the colonists against King George. One of them was taking colonists away from the colonies, and taking them outside the jurisdiction of courts in America to England. I mean, the fact that you can cite a document, one of our founding documents, to support your case, that's pretty powerful. The court then reminds everybody that the Supreme Court has ruled not once, but 3 separate times that due process and the Constitution and the Fifth Amendment demand that all of these people be given due process rights, that if they're in a foreign country, that they be facilitated for their return. If they haven't left yet, that the planes be grounded. In fact, in reminding people of how we got here, the court says that while the Supreme Court may have overruled his original decision, it was on narrow grounds. But at the core, they confirmed and affirmed that Judge Boesberg was right, just as Judge Zinnes is right about Abrego Garcia, that these people, human beings, are entitled to due process, to notice, to get before a federal judge and press their claims and have the proof against them and to confront their accuser. This particular order does a couple of things. And credit to the American Civil Liberties Union that not only got Abrego Garcia in handling that case, but also ran to Texas, got the right orders in Texas from judges, got back to Judge Jeb Boesberg, amended their complaint in light of the Supreme Court decision, and said to Boesberg, you have jurisdiction to certify a class, this class of our clients, in front of you, and then treat them together for a writ of habeas corpus Fifth Amendment analysis. And the judge has now agreed, because he found, after some discovery that was permitted, some documents that were exchanged that we haven't seen, but the judge has, the judges concluded that the U.S. has constructive or otherwise custody over these people, despite dumping them off in El Salvador. In particular, the judge says he is mindful that the relationship that the government purports to have with El Salvador on this is likely a ruse to try to defeat federal jurisdiction of a court. Because all the actions we've seen of Donald Trump, all of his trying in the middle of the night to put people on planes, why? It's not because El Salvador requires 2:00 in the morning drop-offs. It's not a hotel that only, you can only check in after 2 a.m. That's not it. It's because Donald Trump wants to get these people out of America and out of federal jurisdiction so that his actions can't be supervised or ruled upon. That's why he moves detainees around America like a giant shell game in order to avoid judges in courts he doesn't like, trying to stay in Texas and Louisiana and getting them out of New York and New Jersey and DC and Maryland. And if he can't do that, and on top of that, if they're not citizens, then get them out of the country away from federal jurisdiction. The Supreme Court sees it and knows it. Federal courts see it and know it. Not just Democratic appointed judges. Donald Trump's losing 72% of the time in front of Trump appointed judges. That's the losing streak. So the judge continues, and then I'll tell you what's going to happen next. The judge, having now certified a class of all people in CCOT in El Salvador who are subject to the Alien Enemies Act, they can bring their claim in front of him. They'll have 1 week. He's given the Trump administration 1 week, this is on page 69, to submit a notice to the court advising how they intend to facilitate the ability of the CCOT class to seek habeas relief in America. A separate order so stating will issue this day. What is he talking about there? The word facilitate is very ominous. It got defined and redefined by the United States Supreme Court when they allowed Judge Zinnes to order the facilitation of the return or the release from prison in El Salvador of Abrego Garcia. And now this judge is properly, and all judges in the immigration space are picking up with that word facilitate because it now has a defined meaning by the United States Supreme Court. They are there in El Salvador, which means the Trump administration is now on the horns of a dilemma. They have now been told by a federal judge Yes, an unelected single federal judge sitting in D.C. I get it. That's what we're going to hear. But this judge has ordered that they facilitate and give notice of how they're going to be facilitating back to the court. They got 1 week to do it. We know what they're doing in Abrego Garcia, absolutely nothing. They're this close to being found in contempt by Judge Zinnes. She's already given permission just yesterday to the lawyers on the other side to file their motion for contempt. So I expect the Trump administration is going to appeal this. They're going to attack Judge Boesberg, as they always have. They're going to say he's a radical left judge when he's nothing of the kind. He's very good friends with many people on the United States Supreme Court. He was a roommate of Justice Kavanaugh. He's friends with Justice Roberts. They like him. He was appointed by Republicans and Democrats. He's moderate, no matter what Donald Trump tries to tell you. And so they're going to reject giving this notice, and they're going to be found in contempt again. The only reason that the criminal contempt hasn't moved forward in front of Judge Jeb Boesberg is because it's been stayed by another federal court. So they're going to run back to the D.C. Court of Appeals, D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And if they don't like the answer there, they're going to take another emergency application during the vacation time of the Supreme Court to try to defeat Jeb Boesberg. But they are pressing a losing hand. Almost every major decision that relates to habeas corpus, Fifth Amendment due process rights in this administration has gone against the Trump administration for the last several months. 9-0, 7-2, 6-3, you name it, he's lost. Yes, the Supreme Court is allowing him to invalidate temporary protective status for Cubans, Venezuelans, Haitians, and others. And now you see he's put them all on a no-visit list, on a ban. But that's different. That's not people that are being sent to a prison in order to avoid out of the country in order to avoid their Fifth Amendment rights. So I think Trump is going to lose this. We're going to watch it in slow motion, and we'll follow it here on Legal AF. I'm glad you're here. Hit the subscribe button. Come over to Legal AF to Substack. I'm going to post this document there today, so you'll be able to read it for yourself, cover to cover. And we'll see you on the next Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.